Hello, Divinity. Welcome back to the college virtually.
Thanks, man. How you
Yeah,
doing?
I'm all good. I'm all good. So, people that are tuning in or watching this later, if you've sort of lived under a rock and not seen what Divinity does or who she is, just a little intro about her. She grew up in Atlanta and we can hear other people.
Oh,
From an early age, was exposed to sort of funk, soul, R&B music through her parents, eventually falling in love with the hip hop scene. Fast forward a few years, and she became the driving force behind the bass and assistant MD for Beyonce, one of the biggest gigs on the planet, performing on TV shows like Ellen, Oprah, Saturday Night Live, even at the White House for President Obama, who we dearly miss. So not just for Beyonce, but she's also performed with Jay-Z, will.i.am, Erykah Badu, Patti LaBelle, and many more. So on top of all of this, she's also found time to be an artist in her own right.
it's always so funny to hear it all compacted in this little,
Yeah,
paragraph.
yeah, absolutely. No, that's mighty impressive. It's
Oh.
brilliant. So yeah, welcome back to the college.
Thank
So
you.
so let's sort of start back at the beginning. So am I correct in saying you originally studied journalism? Is that right?
Yes, I went to UC Berkeley to be a journalist,
Nice.
right out of high school. Yep.
Okay. And did you find like any of that course sort of helping to become like an aspiring musician or anything? And was there anything about that that really sort of helped, or like even the academic side of things, or within your writing and lyrics and stuff?
Well, I mean, part of the reason why I went into journalism was because of my love of words, and I've been a writer since I was a little girl, writing stories and raps. I started rapping around the time I was 12, and
Yeah.
I had a rap group in high school. And so what really happened was, my education was extremely important to me and my family growing up. So when it was time to decide what I was going to do in the real world, because rapping was a hobby, of course, and not something that was to be pursued seriously, my parents entertained me throughout high school with regard to my rapping career. But I decided to go to college, and writing was a love of mine. So I went to Berkeley to be a journalist. Um, I
Oh,
started studying with June Jordan too in her poetry for the People class while I was at Berkeley.
right.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Nice. That sounds great. So,
Yeah.
so how important was it for you to sort of study at that sort of higher level education, for you to sort of succeed in the music industry? Was it a big part of like crafting you sort of as an artist and a session musician?
No, really, my pursuit of education in the beginning was simply to honor my parents and my ancestors. I mean, my mother always said, You could be anything in the world you want to be, but you have to have education, right? So
Great.
that was the reason why I pursued college in the beginning. But I fell in love with the bass guitar while I was there.
Right.
So, so I decided to leave, and then I sort of got into this, real world education about what the music industry was about. So that's kind of where I found myself.
Nice.
After 2 years at Berkeley, I went back home, and my hip hop group started. We decided to put our own records out before most people were thinking of being independent musicians. We did the research and figured out how to press up our own vinyl and tapes and
That's
CDs and do
amazing.
it. Yeah.
And when
Yeah.
was this? Like what year were you sort of?
Long, long time ago. Long,
Right.
back when people used to press up tapes and CDs
Yeah, yeah.
and
Nice.
vinyl. So, I mean, I graduated. I left Berkeley in 96, and hip hop was, that was the heyday of hip hop music, especially in Atlanta. Hip hop was growing, and Outkast was, doing well, and Goody Mob and all these incredible groups were really hitting the scene. And so we jumped in that movement back then. Yeah.
Excellent. Um, like having gone through all that, have you got any sort of advice for students that are just sort of starting a course, or they're finding their sort of studies quite tricky? Like, have you got anything that you can, like, any advice that can help them with that sort of process?
Students that are finding their courses a little tricky. I
Mm,
think think part of it is just having a balance and really recognizing what is it that you really want to do? What is it that you really want to accomplish? And why are you doing this in the first place? You know, honestly, I'm in school right now at Berkeley online. And so sometimes when I find things to be really tricky, like right now, because our country is burning and I'm focusing on microphone techniques. So it's really hard to focus, but I know that I have to find some sort of balance in why am I studying microphone techniques and music licensing right now in the first place, and just really sticking to your studies. As far as like advice for young musicians, I would say that the best advice I can give anybody who really wants to pursue music as a career, as a lifestyle, is to get out of your bedroom and go out to the clubs and play. Make yourself seen. One of the reasons why I kind of became popular early on was because I was always out. I would go to 3 and 4 different clubs every single night. Just, hey, what are you guys doing? Oh, I want to play. You know, what are we doing now? Okay, well, you want to go over here? Okay, cool. Let's go over there. You know, especially when you're young and you don't have a ton of responsibility. Get out and play so people know you and they talk about you and your name is in their mouths. It's so important for that to be the case.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I always sort of say to students and that, like, no one's going to make up your phone number, pick up their phone and go, oh, you know what I mean? It's like, you've got to get out, you've got to meet people. Like it's a great word, this and wicked, and like you've got to get out, otherwise you might be amazing in your bedroom, but that's
you know, but you hear these great stories about, oh, I was discovered on Instagram or somebody saw my YouTube channel, and so that's how I got this gig. I mean, that's great. Just have a balance of those things. You can still do that. You can still live in this virtual world, but don't forget that we are real people and we have to interact with each other and learn how to interact with each other. You know, being on tour is about 20% of the time you're playing music. The rest of the time you are interacting with people. Exactly. And so you got to have some experience with that.
Yeah, like personal skills, you know, how to deal with people, how to stay out of people's way, making sure you don't shit on a tour bus, all that sort of stuff that But yes, it's the real world stuff that really counts. So after college, like how did you sort of touched briefly, get on the circuit? Was it just literally going around to every jam you could find, meeting as many people, that sort of thing?
Yeah, you know, people call it networking now, right? Everybody's like, you have to go network. And they make it sound so impersonal and not fun and like a chore, but it's really just your lifestyle. As a musician, your lifestyle is getting out and experiencing people. You know, sitting in your bedroom playing for nobody is you're not gonna grow that way. You get out, you read an audience, you get in front of people, you get feedback, you grow, you make mistakes, you fall on your face, you get up, you embarrass yourself. You know, you do all of those things, and that's what really helps you grow as a musician. So, yeah, I got out. And I just played. I was so in love with the bass, though. Like, I was in love with it. And I wanted to learn so much because I didn't grow up playing. So I didn't know anything. I didn't know what a mode was. I didn't know what a triad was. I would read about these things and try to research them, but I didn't know what they were. So all I could do was go and find musicians who had been doing this to try to teach me. I didn't know the class, you know, the songs that people were calling in the jams. I didn't know those songs. When I first started playing, I was mostly just making shit up. I would play with MCs, and they would it would be like beat MC battles. And so what we would do is the band would just make up something, and the MCs would battle each other over whatever groove we were playing. And we never played anybody's songs. We were just playing grooves and jamming. And so I recognized that there were some things that I was missing in my learning. And so I had to go back and learn some of the standard songs and different things like that. But you got to take it upon yourself. You know, you can't expect somebody else to give you all the knowledge. Go out and do it if this is what you want.
Yeah. And I think if anyone's a little intimidated by the whole going out into jams, like just go check the environment, like have a drink, and then see what songs they're playing, go home, learn the songs, come back the next week, get up and just, I think it's quite an accomplishment to be able to do that if you're nervous. I think you sort of, it gives you a lot of confidence. So, but yeah,
I'll tell you a secret. Everybody's nervous.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody's making stuff up. We're all blagging it. It's fine. It's just how much confidence you put behind it. But yeah, it's great to hear from that sort of stuff from someone of your stature. You know, it's like everyone looks up to the greats and they're like, oh, they know everything. They're perfect in every way and all that sort of thing. And it's like, no, everyone's just human. We're all learning as we go, sort of thing. So let's go back a few years now, and there was the Victor Wooten has a sort of a camp, doesn't he? Yes. And you attended that, and then went on tour with him afterwards, didn't you? Now, how did that sort of come about? Like, and how was that experience? Because as far as I know, it's like a predominantly music, but also a bit of nature in there. It's very sort of. I've read Victor Wooten's book, and he's very much about life and passion and such a beautiful soul sort of thing. So how was that for you?
I mean, I went to Victor's camp expecting to learn from the master, you know. And on the first night of camp, one of the things he does, he still does it to this day, is he asks students to introduce themselves, not by going around the room saying your name and where you're from and how long you've been playing the bass and all that, you know. It's like introduce yourself with your instrument. And that was one of those times I was really nervous. Yeah. I was really scared. I mean, because most people don't know that's going to happen. So when he says that, you can feel the room, like just the air sucks out of the room and everybody's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to play? Victor Wooten just asked me to introduce myself playing the bass. So I just asked him, I said, well, can I rap and play? And he said, well, is that what you do? I said, yeah, that's what I do. He said, well, you know, do what you do. It's your 30 seconds, your 1 minute, 30 seconds, whatever. Introduce yourself. So, so I got up and played the song I had been working on, the only song that I had written where I could rap and play bass at the same time, because it was something that I was thinking would become my thing, you know. So I got up and played the song. It's called the D-I-V-I-N-I-T-Y, you know. And afterwards, you know, people clapped and they were like, wow, it was really good, really good. Victor didn't say much, you know. We went through the whole camp. He never said anything to me. He never showed me any extra, you know, love or anything. But 2 weeks, maybe 2 weeks after camp, he called and he asked me, he said, you know that song you played? Do you have more songs like that? I was like, yeah, I got a lot of songs like that. He's like, you know, I really like that. You know, what do you think about coming on tour with me and opening up my show and playing your songs? Now, when he said that, I almost fell out on the floor because I didn't have any other songs like that. I had that one song, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just going along with it like, yeah, man, yeah, I can do that. That's awesome. I got off the phone and I was so like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I have to go write some songs. I need to practice. I still didn't know anything. You know what I mean? So yeah. I ended up touring with him. I learned so much by hanging out with him and his brothers. And, you know, I just grew and continued to grow. I mean, it's like, you know, it's like living with the master. You watch those old martial arts movies where, you know, you go, you know, you seek out the master and you go live with them and you say, Master, teach me everything you know. And the master says, oh, well, go paint this fence.
Yeah, wax on, wax off.
Go do something that seems totally unrelated to learning anything, right?
Yeah.
So it was kind of like I just got to live with him, you know. He never gives me bass lessons, ever, right. No matter how much I beg him to. Yeah, I just have to watch and learn and just watch him live, you know. I think that's kind of the best way to teach.
He sounds like a great teacher and just like a great person, but like sometimes it's not the obvious way of teaching, but by doing something or doing another skill, you then apply that to the skill you want it to, and then it's sort of, that sounds brilliant. Was it quite intimidating, like playing on stage with him, like, or was he quite comforting in that way, sort of thing.
He's really comforting.
Yeah.
No, because I mean, Vic, it's funny because he'll talk about it sometimes. He's like, I knew he would challenge me often, and he knew he was doing, and he knew I was afraid. So he was challenging my fear oftentimes and helping me overcome it. He would be doing something totally different and just call me out on stage. Hey, Divinity, come out here and bust a freestyle over this, or grab your bass. I hated when he said grab your bass, because I was like, oh, I'm not gonna do it. I'll be up there scared, and. But when he'll play something, and he'll approach me in this loving, fatherly sort of way, like, come on and have this conversation with me in front of all these people, no less, but bring your instrument and let's have this conversation. And so despite the fear, I would be forced to grow in front of people.
He is basically Mr. Miyagi, isn't he? From Clyde. But that's like a great example of what we're talking about before, just putting yourself out of your comfort zone, but from there you just learn and you become so much stronger and better for it. And I think you were possibly going through some of that during some of these performances or whatever, but from that you just get so much better and learn, don't you? So that sounds great.
We make it sound so easy, right? Like we're just like, yeah, go out there and do it. It's not easy. I don't want to oversimplify it. It's really difficult to overcome yourself, but you just have to practice it, Absolutely. A little bit at a time.
Yeah, I think the rewards are better than not doing it. So it's
absolutely.
You only live once. Well, as far as I'm aware, but
this time, this time
you only live once. Did you have like a sort of a big break moment where just you got a certain gig or did a certain thing, and like from there things just started to take, like people were like, oh, okay, and then started getting different calls for different gigs and stuff like that? Did you have a sort of moment like that at all?
Yeah, the Beyonce moment.
Nice.
Yeah, the Beyonce moment for me was the moment when I realized what a bass player really did in a band, honestly.
Yeah.
I had spent most of my time in my career being an artist. I had never really sought to just be a bass player. I was already an artist when I picked up the bass. So the Beyonce gig was the gig where I gained a really deep understanding of the role of the bass player in the band. And also that was the time when, we were put on a world stage, and we were on everybody's TV show. We were touring the world. We had solos in her show. So yeah, that was a really intense moment. And what's funny is that I got called for the Justin Bieber gig right after Justin was signed to Usher, and I didn't take it because I was tired. I honestly was tired, and it was right after we finished with a run of the Beyonce tour. I was like, this guy called me, hey, you want to do the Justin Bieber thing? And I was like, I didn't, Justin Bieber wasn't who he is or who he was, and I was like, yeah, I mean, that's cool, but I just want to go home and go to sleep. For a month. Yes, for a month. So I was like, it could be cool, but I'm just, and I kick myself about that even to this day, because that would have actually been kind of cool.
Yeah. Things happen for a reason, though. That's great, though. It's nice to be off that sort of stuff because they're huge gigs. Do you mind if we touch on the Beyonce thing? I'm sure you've been asked about it a gazillion times, but
I get it.
It's such a massive gig, and like just in every way, in production, musicianship, artist, all that sort of thing. But I want to talk a bit about the whole like audition process. What did you get before the audition? How did you like prepare yourself for it? Who got you the audition? That sort of stuff's really interesting to know.
This was a very unique situation because it was an open call audition. She actually put an open call out everywhere, press release all over the world. It was radio, TV, well, maybe not TV, but radio, newspapers, back when people read newspapers, that she was, looking for an all-female band. Right. And I was touring with Victor at the time, and everybody who had seen me play with Victor, you know, you go out on the road, you meet people, you exchange phone numbers. Everybody started hitting me up, sending me text messages, sending me a link for, you know, what you have to do for the audition. And I was like, oh, that's funny, because I could name 5 female bass players who the gig was totally theirs. You know, like I thought it was a publicity stunt. You know, maybe she was putting together an all-female band, and, you know, she wanted to bring some attention to it. So I didn't know what was happening, but I was like, that gig is somebody else's anyway, whatever. I'm working on a new album. I'm getting ready to go back on tour with Victor. I'm good. But everybody, all of my friends, it was relentless. My friends came to my house and forced me to go to this gig, to this audition.
Yeah.
So finally I went to the audition. I looked it up. They wanted you to have, what was the song? Work It Out, I believe. They wanted you to play the version that was on the DVD, what was the tour, whatever the tour was at that time, Dangerously in Love tour, the version that was there with the bridge and everything. So I went and bought the DVD, and then I was like, oh, they just want everybody to go buy the DVD, you know.
So
yeah, this is a great publicity stunt to go sell a DVD, right? So no, I went and bought the DVD. I learned the part, and so. The way she did it, I mean, it was really unique. She had auditions in all the major cities in the country, from Atlanta to New York, Texas, you know, Houston, LA, Boston, a few other places. So I went to the audition in Atlanta, and it was really interesting. Lots of women I'd never seen before, ever, were lined up. I got there, got in line. Somebody recognized me and was like, hey, wait a minute, you shouldn't be in line. Come to the front of the line. And, you know, I got to the front of the line just because I had been out there a lot. And this one guy, William Burke, as we were all preparing to go into the room, he stood up in front of everybody, and I was quite embarrassed by this. But he said something to all the women in the room. He said, you know, there are a lot of women here that I've never seen or never heard of, but I know this woman right here, and we've never met, but I've been hearing her name for years because she's been out here playing these clubs for years. And though I've never met her, I know who she is. And I want you guys to take note of that. This is an important moment for you to realize what it takes to be known like that. So whatever. I was embarrassed. So whatever. I go into the room. I play Work It Out. CNN was there. They asked to interview me because I was kind of popular. Right. Yeah, it was weird. So they followed me in there. I played the Work It Out song. You know, I was like, cool. Then they were like, oh, just play something. I was like, okay. So then I was just like, you know, you know, something like that, because I was like, oh, they might, you know, that's exciting. Yeah. So I played a little slap bass, and they was like, okay, thank you. And I left. And I had this interview with CNN, and we talked about what it would be like to get the gig. And I go home, and I hear nothing, maybe for a day. Or was it that night or the next night, like around midnight? That guy, William Burke, calls and says, hey, so, you know, you've been chosen to go to New York for the second round of auditions. So, you know, we're going to fly you to New York. So that's what happened. I was flown to New York and went through another round of auditions at Sony Studios. Oh, God, it was so hard. I mean, it was so nervous. I was so afraid. I didn't know. It was just nerve-wracking, man. It was nerve-wracking. Yeah. Yeah, they would call different groups into a room, and you would play, Work It Out again. And then people started leaving, you know, and I was still there. So at the end of that first day, we were down to, I don't know, maybe 25 people. And we all went into the studio, and they showed us a new song. It was Deja Vu. It was her single. And it was all bass. Boom, 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 ba-digga, boom, 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 boom. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I can, you know, like, oh shit. You know, so I actually had this little device. It's like a little pocket amplifier which was to my, advantage over most of the other bass players because nobody else had one. So I was able to put my earphones on and practice this line, where nobody else could do that. So I practiced it. I felt like I knew it. And so we spent the rest of that day auditioning different groups, and they would keep calling us in. And then there were a couple of battles that went down. The drummers had to battle, and then I battled this bass player, and we were fighting for our lives. But it was really interesting because we were all cheering each other on at the same time. We were battling for our lives. And at the end of the day, we all stood there, and Matthew Knowles told us that we had been chosen to be the band. And in 2 weeks, we would play the BET Awards. There's a bass hanging on the wall back there. I don't know if you can see it. A little silver bass back there is the bass I played on the BET Awards.
Amazing. What a story. What an audition process. Usually it's like, can you come down and play? Cool, you've got the gig. You haven't got the gig. But you went through all of that.
Yes, I went through all of that. Yes.
Yeah. Wow. I'd have lost weight doing that.
I did. I did not eat for 2 days. Like, I couldn't eat. I was so nervous.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. You should be so proud of yourself, getting the audition, then nailing the gig. And I for anyone listening who didn't see the tour, I actually supported you with an artist on a couple of dates in the UK. And like the production and the playing and everything, it was when you had, is it Nikki on drum? Was it Nikki?
Yep, Nikki.
And you had Kim Thompson as well.
On the other side.
Yeah. And I'd seen Kim Thompson play with Mike Stern, and I was like, oh my God! It was just like the whole thing was monstrous. It was like, not many people do shows like that at all. So you should be super proud of that one. What was your touring rig sort of setup? Was it like a quiet stage, or did you have amps or anything like that, or?
It was new for all of us, this whole idea of a quiet stage.
Right, so no amps at all.
No amps at all. But what was crazy was that we had amps in rehearsal. So it wasn't until we were getting ready to go on tour, they were like, okay, oh yeah, by the way, there will be no amps on stage. Everybody was like, what?
Yeah.
How do I play bass with no amps? It's all in-ears, right?
Yeah.
So, I had, at the time, this company was developing this little plate.
Yeah.
I don't even remember the name of the plate, but it was this big, really monstrous plastic plate with a butt kicker on it.
Yeah.
And so whenever I would hit a note, I would vibrate so I could feel the bass. It worked. Sometimes I would tell people to come here, stand right here. And I would hit the low B, and it was like, blah.
Yeah. Now go get your filling sorted out. They're amazing. If anyone's interested in those bass players wise, or even drummers, drummers have them in their store, but there's a company called Porter and Davis in the UK who do those. But they were basically like sort of a speaker, but with a block of cork in there, I think, wasn't it? That vibrated on the bit of wood, and that gives you the sensation. And those with your in-ears, it's like, some warmth. Yes. As well as a foot massage.
Unless it's too high, you have to adjust it, because sometimes I would start the show and be like, oh my God, somebody come turn it down. Turn
the amp down. My tooth just fell out.
Yes.
Yeah, I've done that before. But right, so it was just bass, in-ears, and butt kicker essentially, and
yep, that was what it was.
Amazing musicians. Wow, that sounds incredible. So let's. So you've also been picked to teach an Art of MCing course. Is that right?
Yeah.
On the Next Level program. Can you tell us a bit more about that sort of thing?
So Next Level is a hip hop diplomat program. So it's kind of like what the jazz musicians used to do in America years and years ago. They would go out and represent the country at different parts of the world and spread the language of jazz. So I guess this company, Next Level, put together a program that's sponsored by the State Department. Shh, don't tell anybody. Shh. Sponsored by the State Department. And we go all around the world, and mostly in countries where there have been conflict of some sort. I was chosen to go into the Dominican Republic, which was actually really, 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 really fun.
Yes.
To teach the art of emceeing, It was one of the best experiences of my life. I had this room full of crazy young MCs.
Mm.
The thing about MCs is that MCs, you can't sit them in a desk and say, okay, we're going to learn hip hop and we're going to learn how to write raps today.
Yeah.
No, we were all like ciphering, standing around on stage, microphones everywhere. People were coming in my class like, "Yo, your class is organized chaos." But
Yeah.
we went through the history of hip hop. Hip hop started in the Bronx in New York. I would talk about the messages of hip hop music and the importance of having a message and having something to say, not just, as a form of entertainment, but as a form of edutainment as well.
Nice.
It was a really great program. I'm really proud of that. I was
Yeah.
kind of nervous going there too, because I don't speak Spanish. So I
Right.
was teaching people hip hop or MCing, and they were Spanish speaking, the majority of my students.
Wow.
So
Um,
yeah, it was
yeah.
really, really interesting. I had an interpreter, and so there was there was some language
An
barriers
emceeing
there.
interpreter.
Yes, yes.
Wow. How long did you do that for? Was
Awesome.
it like just a one-off course, or did it continue on? Or
Yeah, the program, what they do is they choose, well, artists apply for the program every year. So this program has been going on for a number of years now. And this year it was canceled because of the pandemic, of course. But yeah, I only taught one course. What was it? 14 days?
Mhm.
So 14 days, and then at the end of the 14 days, we had a huge concert in at this community center in the Dominican Republic. It was so dope though, because one of my classes was centered around the cipher. And so that was a tradition in hip hop where a bunch of MCs would just stand in a circle and somebody might beatbox and everybody would just rap. And we were on this campus where there was an elementary school that the community center sponsored. And the next day after we did our cipher, somebody was walking through the yard and they saw little groups of these young students
Yeah.
in ciphers beatboxing and rapping, and the girls were participating, and that was really, really cool because they had seen us the day before, and they'd seen me out there, like in the midst of it all. So
Yeah.
they were imitating us. It was kind of
That's
cool.
amazing.
Yeah,
Nice. That sounds like a great experience, that
it
does.
really was.
Yeah, and to go there and do it as well. Sounds lovely. Um, have you like some more questions from our students? Have you got for some of our up and coming artists, have you got any sort of like skills, like key skills to help develop their sort of studies or how to sort of stand out in a crowd or even as a session musician, but like from the artist side of the sort of point of view? Do you have any sort of things you do that perhaps you stand out essentially?
One of the things that I would say is be especially pay special attention to how you communicate with people.
Mm,
Because you're dealing with people and people remember how you treat them.
yeah.
They remember what their interactions with you are like. Read over your emails a few times before you hit send. That's really, really key. Make sure you say thank you. Make sure you greet people. Make sure you ask questions. I think that having some level of professionalism about yourself. Don't just come in and go around and say hi to everybody in a room, for instance, at the studio. Be mindful of how you treat the people who may not necessarily be working on the project you're working on. The way you treat the people who are cleaning up, the
Mm,
way you treat the people all around in the environment you're in, because whoever's hired you to do the job, they pay attention to those little things and they say, oh, wow, that's a good person. I
mm,
like this person. I like being around this person. I want to be around this person more. I like their professionalism. I like the way they communicate. Part of most of this industry is about being around people you want to be around.
yeah.
People hire their friends. They just do. MDs hire the musicians they want to go on the road with. If you're not somebody that people want to be around, I don't care how good you are on your instrument.
Yeah, very wise words. And that's the sort of thing that we sometimes skipped being taught. It's just who are you going to spend the next 18 months on the road with? Or who are you, if you were, say, someone picking songs for a radio list play, if you're an artist or something, it might subconsciously for them just have this slight influence over. If you're a nice person, you're like, being nice doesn't take any energy. That's like great advice. Yeah, thank you for that. All right, so I've got 3 questions, quick fire round.
Okay.
All right, here we go. So, favorite bass line, favorite performance, who's your biggest influence?
Woo! Favorite bass line right now is Glide by Pleasure.
Oh, it's amazing.
What? One of my favorites.
Yeah.
Favorite performance of mine, you mean?
Yeah.
One of my favorite performances of mine was the Women's March 2 years ago in Nashville.
Lovely.
We really touched a lot of hearts with that performance. And my biggest influence.
Yeah. Doesn't necessarily have to be music. It can be.
I don't want to just say one person, but I'm gonna say Victor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Beautiful. Well done. Lovely work. So another question from one of our students. Do you have any inspiring advice that you could offer to any students from an ethnic minority entering the music industry?
I mean, I wouldn't offer any. I'd offer the same advice that I'd offer anybody getting into the music industry.
Yeah.
Everything I've said can apply to anybody, to any minority. It just applies to everybody. Put your best foot forward at all times. This industry is tough for everybody. You know what I mean? But one of the advantages for being in an educational program is that the people around you are the people who are going to be in top positions in the music industry in the next few years.
Yeah.
Do as much as you can to get to know some of these people around you. Try to collaborate with them. Just strike up some conversations. Go out of your way to meet some of the people around you, because when they're in top positions in other areas of the industry, you'll be on their list to get some of these opportunities, whether it's in music licensing or in corporate, whatever it is, in bands and in these situations, studio situations, mix engineers. Hey, can you mix this? Oh, one of the a great example of that is oh my God, what's his name? Who is the musical director and created all the music for Black Panther and did the music for Ludwig Göransson.
Right.
He and the director for Black Panther went to college together. They went to USC together.
Right.
Part of the reason why he does the music for all of his films is because they were in school together and they worked together in school. He was putting music in those films in school. So, of course, naturally, when he gets out of school, who's he going to call when he has these big opportunities? So,
Yeah, it's something that we never think about. Like, the people you're studying with are the next generation. So that person that was like, I don't know, they might be on your course studying, they might suck at drums or something like that, but they might go on to own a record company that has all of these, and you know what I mean? It's like, but yeah, it's very true. So when you came to visit us, I think it was about 5 years ago now, you said one of your highlights was playing with Beyonce, but you also said that you don't think you've had the highlight of your career yet. Have you had any big highlights since the Beyonce gig?
I would say one of the highlights for me right now has been licensing my music to different companies. That's an area it's not that glamorous. It doesn't sound like a glamorous area. But it's hard to get into music licensing. And so I've written some children's music, as a matter of fact,
Oh, amazing.
that I've been able to license with a pretty big company
Yeah.
recently, and started a relationship with them that I believe is going to last for a very long time.
Mm.
And as I continue to develop my career in all the facets and aspects of the music industry, so that my music continues to live on, even if I don't want to play music anymore, I'll still be able to have this, this source of income and this source of influence and the source of inspiration for another generation by giving the music an opportunity to live in other spaces. So that's it's kind of the highlight for me right now. This quarantine has been really interesting. It's forced me to get my business together in a way that I, sort of didn't have time to do before.
Yeah. That sounds amazing. That's quite an accomplishment, and congratulations for a start.
Thank you.
Doing the deal. That's brilliant. But also, I think wise words about this quarantine time. It's like this is the only time you'll hopefully get in your life where it's like we can't do anything apart from develop yourself or your skills, and there's a massive music business side, like you're saying, about understanding all of that sort of stuff. And like, now's the time. Like, don't use this as dead time. Like, make sure and then you come out and you're like, now I've got 15 companies and taking over the world.
Yes.
Yeah. And remember how to do a gig.
Exactly. I'm nervous about getting on stage again. I can't wait for that moment to play with other musicians and get on stage. But you're absolutely right. If you come out of this the same way as you went in, you've missed out on a wonderful opportunity to grow, because everybody and everything had to stop. So we're often afraid to stop and take care of the things that we need to take care of because we're afraid that everybody's going to surpass us.
Yeah.
But nobody's surpassing anybody right now.
Yeah.
Everybody's at home.
Exactly.
So,
you can learn about anything you want to now. We have the internet; it's all there. You just got to pull your finger out your ass, I suppose, and you. But
totally.
Do you how do you find it? Like, was your last album, was it 2016? I'm Possible? Was it?
It was, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how do you find it, sort of going from like playing with artists to becoming artists to now doing children's music and stuff like that? How do you find the switch between? Do you have to get a different cap on, so to speak, sort of thing, or?
Well, it's the being an artist has been a thread throughout my entire career. I started out as an artist, so I had to sort of switch to become more of a session player, or just a backing bass player. But now all of those things just sort of exist simultaneously for me. I'm a writer. I am a producer. I am I'm a composer. I am a bass player. I am an MC. I love to learn, and so I love to do a little bit of everything. And realizing, it took a long time for me to realize that I was an MC and a bass player. I used to separate those things, but now when I acquire new skills, I realize how important it is to make it part of a whole instead of separating them, because they all feed off of each other and they all grow each other. My bass playing skills help to inform my production. My production helps to inform my writing, my recording. So I'm, it's just keep learning, man. Learning informs your creativity. The more you learn, the more creative you can be in this world. Inspiration is everywhere. So just open your eyes to it and just do it. It's hard. I mean, sometimes I have to say, okay, Divinity, you got to make a beat. Let's get into beat making mode. All right. Sit in front of this computer, open up Pro Tools. Okay, here we go. Some mornings I'm like, okay, I'm playing bass today. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Knowledge is power, isn't it? Basically,
Yeah.
if you know how to do it, then you can crack on and make things successful. So, speaking about beats and stuff like that, like when you're doing your writing process, do you sort of, does it change, or do you start with a bass line, a beat, or a lyric, or something that's happened in your life? Is there a sort of like a typical way you sort of write, or is it just whatever happens, sort of thing?
It's sometimes, it really depends. If I have an idea, there are different methods I could use. I sometimes start with a bass line. If I'm practicing bass, I've had to discipline myself because practicing bass usually turns into, oh, I'm writing a song now.
Pro Tools.
Yes, exactly. That's usually what happens. I'm practicing bass and I play something and I'm like, yo, that's kind of cool. Let me pull up Pro Tools. Okay, let me see. Okay, that was good. Okay, put the bass down. Now pull up some sounds. Okay, now I got a beat going. Ooh, that's dope. Where's the microphone? Let me pull up then now I'm spitting rhymes over it and I'm sitting back like, oh yeah, that's dope. Sometimes I'll have a voice note, or I'll make a conscious decision. I'm going to work on a track, and I may pull up a voice note or something and say, oh yeah, that's a cool idea. Let me build on that. Yeah, so it really depends. It could go a number of ways.
Yeah, whatever floats your boat at the time. Yeah. Next thing you know, it's 3 a.m. and you're like, I gotta go to bed. I'm still
Exactly.
Where am I? Yeah.
You know how it is, exactly.
Yeah, that sounds great. So also you teamed up with the original members band, the original members of the Beyonce Band. So yeah, and you went into the studio and did some recording. So tell us a bit about that project.
Yeah, we went to the Women's Audio Mission in San Francisco. It's an incredible studio run by women, and this director Terry's an incredible woman who is an engineer herself. So the Beyonce Band and I, we call ourselves the OGs. We were doing a camp at one of the members' school where she teaches marching band. And we were talking around lunch and we're like, we never really got in the studio and recorded. And I was like, well, I'm going to be in San Francisco recording an album at Zoo Labs. So why don't you guys come out and it's all my studio time. It's free. Let's put together a record. And so while I was in San Francisco, I had hit up Terry about something else. And Terry and I started talking about it, and she was like, well, why don't you guys do the record here? And I was like, okay. So all the girls came out. I had written this song called Higher. At home, one of those moments when I was playing bass and started recording. And I sent it out to the girls and was like, what do you guys think about this? I sent it to Nikki first because I wanted Nikki to put drums on it. And Nikki was like, yo, shit is fire, man. Let's do it. Yeah, she put some drums on it. I was like, yo, this is crazy. So I sent it to the rest of the band and was like, do you guys want to do this song? And everybody was like, yeah, we could do that song. So they all came out to San Francisco. We filmed the whole thing. We partnered with Women's Audio Mission. We partnered with Plug-in Alliance. So Plug-in Alliance right now is preparing the stems for remix opportunities. So you guys can check that out at Plug-in Alliance. We released it on Bandcamp. It's called Higher. It's also available on Spotify. The song kind of took a political turn, and we recorded this back in October, but it seems to be extremely relevant right now in the times that we're living in. But I mean, we haven't been living in much different times in the past few years anyway. So, but it's really relevant. It's aggressive. It has horns. Kat Dyson played guitar. Nikki Glaspie on the drums. Tia Fuller and Kathy Rodriguez playing saxophone. Marcy Chapa on percussion. I'm playing bass. My man Eric Rossi mixed it, and it's a great song. You guys should check it out.
That sounds amazing. So yeah, just to sort of, you said the stems are being prepared for people that can remix it. Is that what you said? So where can people find that again? Sorry. Pluginalliance.com.
They're preparing them right now for different DAWs. So in the next few days, they should be available on their website. So you can download the stems and remix the record, or use Plug-in Alliance's plugins to mix the record and create your own version of it. It should be.
That sounds amazing. Was it nice to meet up with your girls again and do some?
Oh man, we had such a great time. Such a great time. Yeah.
Nice, that's great. It's a hell of a band. All right, I've got the trickiest question of all. One thing, like when I'm teaching and talking to people, the term vibe, groove, that sort of thing always comes up. There's no course on how to teach vibe or groove or anything like that. And I sort of have my way of trying to explain it and stuff like that. I wondered if you had a way that you could, if people are like, I need to be groovier, I need to be vibier, that sort of thing. Do you have anything that you could advise on, like how to sort of try and improve on that, or what your take is on it? Not even how to improve. What's your take on it? What sets people different? Why does that person sound vibier or groovier than that person?
We all have our own thing, like my fingerprint is different from yours.
Mm.
The way I walk is different from the way you walk. The way I move my neck when I'm playing bass is different from the way you move yours.
Yeah.
I think what we have to do is get to know ourselves and know what our groove is, because everybody has a groove. So the way we do that in the beginning is we imitate. We imitate others. It's the way we learn language. We learn language by watching our parents' mouths and listening to their inflections. And so we start to emulate that and imitate that. And so we start saying these things in our own way. We are creative from the time we're born. When somebody tells you to say the word bottle, a lot of kids don't say bottle. They say baba, or, they make up some other thing. And our parents say, okay, well, that's what that thing is now. That's your baba, and I'm going to give it to you. The parents doesn't say, no, that's not a baba, that's a bottle. Say it like this, So we have to be able to do that for ourselves and give ourselves that grace. Get to know who you are, get to know what your thing is. Yes, you can imitate Victor and try to sound like Victor, but you're never going to sound like Victor. You're always going to sound like you. And at some point you got to be okay with sounding like you and do the best you that you can do. Now, groove, if you want to talk about pocket,
yeah,
that's a little bit different, right? Everybody got to get some pocket. That means you need to practice with a metronome if you're not playing in time. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but
yeah.
As far as your groove is concerned, that's just who you are when you pick up the bass. When Pino Palladino picks up the bass, it's Pino, because he has a thing. When Flea plays, it's him. He has a thing, and so it's about developing that thing, and it takes time.
Yeah, yeah. So it's almost like trying to find the little things that you do and then just developing those, and then that becomes your character, that becomes your groove, that sort of thing. So
yeah, I think that's a hard question, man.
It's tricky, but I find it like ever intriguing, especially speaking to a lot of students, and just for myself, it's like, what makes that person sound better than that? Is obviously a person and a human being, but is it sort of like dynamics and placement of the note and just their personality? You might find people with a wassy personality have a wassy playing style or whatever sort of thing. It's all of those things, but I suppose it's figuring out what they are, harnessing them and making them bigger, growing them, I suppose. But yeah, there's no right or wrong answer for that. I just find it really intriguing on other people's takes. Okay, so what have you got anything sort of planned after this whole lockdown thing? Is it more children's music, or you got any gigs booked in or tours booked in for later in the year or anything like that?
Yeah, we were supposed to. I was touring with Fantasia, the artist who won the American Idol some number of years ago, and I was her MD. I had been touring with her since October, so we have been trying to figure out what's going to happen with all the dates we had on the books. I don't think we're going to be having any concerts anytime soon, or even for the rest of the year. So I've really been focusing on getting out of this semester of school, honestly, so that I can focus on the next project I've been working on. Not only the children's music, but I've also been working on this one woman-esque type of play, an album called The Ballad of Debbie Walker. It's kind of the origin stories of Divinity Roxx, the superhero. And so I've been putting those records together. I was recording in Zoo Labs. And the students, I would encourage you to check out Zoo Labs. Zoo Labs is a nonprofit organization that helps students develop their creative projects by offering various services like studio time and business classes for free. So check that out. I'm just working on the album. I recorded a few songs that I love. Oh my God, I love these songs. I haven't shared them with anybody yet, but I can't wait to do that. So I'm just writing and continuing to grow and continuing to develop myself. And, I just I just healed from fracturing my wrist, so I got to learn how to play bass again. Well, not really learn, but I got to get back into playing bass again.
Wow.
But yeah, so that's really my main focus is the Ballad of Debbie Walker.
Nice. Sounds great. How's your wrist? Is it all right? Is it healing okay?
Yeah, it's healing. It's a lot better than it was. Like I couldn't turn it around like this for a while. That was really scary.
Yeah. It's amazing how quickly you lose the muscle in something. You're like, she's weak as a child now.
Yes. Yeah, so I got to build it back up right now.
Okay, well, it's been lovely finding out about your amazing life.
Thank you.
So, do you have anything that you would like to pass on advice-wise to any students before we finish up?
No, I'll just say keep going, and keep doing what you love. When it's not fun anymore, do something else.
Brilliant. That's been great. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much.
Lovely speaking to you.
It's been lovely.
So, hopefully we'll get you back again in a few more years.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, lovely. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.